mattress guarantee. Only during Mattress Firm's Memorial Day sale. For offer details, visit mattressfirm.com/stores. Product offers and prices may vary in Hawaii and Alaska.
The following program is a paid presentation. The views and/or opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KW-AM. Welcome to the Variety Hour on AM990, where local leaders talk Memphis.
Listen to you move your mouth. I bet you come from way down south. Now don't tell me, let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good. Talk Memphis, high on the bluff. That's where I can't get enough. Listening to you talk that stuff. Talk Memphis, oh yeah, talk Memphis.
This is the Memphis Real Estate Hour with your host, Dean Harris, on AM990 KW-AM. And now, here's your host, Dean Harris.
All right, welcome to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I am your host, Dean Harris. I am with CrestCore Realty on Summer Avenue there in East Memphis. Welcome everybody back to work from a long Memorial Day weekend. This is always a struggle to get started here on Tuesday morning. Gil, you and I are experiencing a few Memorial Day blues this morning.
I'm a little slower today, yes.
Yeah, that's right. I think most of us are. Appreciate you guys listening this morning to the show. Some of you are tuning in on Facebook Live. Most of you are probably listening on AM990 here in Memphis or tuning in online at KW-AM990.com. So I appreciate you guys joining us no matter which one of those routes you chose to take this morning. The Memphis Real Estate Hour will focus on investing your money in Memphis, Tennessee, and it will focus on the ever-changing residential real estate market. We're really having a fun time with that residential market. We're still experiencing the extremely low inventory, so we'll go through that on this show as well. I'll remind you every week that I am an investor. I personally invest in Memphis, so if you have any home that you need to sell quickly for any reason, please call me. It doesn't matter what shape, where it's at, or what the reason you need to sell it is. I don't care. I'll get you a cash offer in 48 hours, and like I said, I do not care where it's at or what condition it's in. And I'll try to sell it for you in a couple of days. Last week on the show, I had Will Griffin from Griffin, Clift, Everton, and Mashmeyer on to discuss assignment contracts and LLCs. It was a great conversation for a lot of my wholesalers, for a lot of the people that I deal with on a daily basis. The assignment contracts are through my wholesalers, and the LLCs are for most of my clients. So we discussed both of those topics. Will is one of our preferred closing attorneys that we always love having him part of CrestCore, and he was great on the show last week. So if you want to check out that last week's show and you have questions or you want to hear what we talked about as far as assignment contracts and LLCs, you can log on to the show's Facebook page, the Memphis Real Estate Hour, and you can look at last week's video. So those are always going to be up there. Today's show looks like this. I'm going to give you the investment of the week. I'm going to have a listing of the week this week as well. Sometimes we don't have the listing, but this week we're going to have that. And then my guest, Dan Butler, will be talking about the BRRRR strategy, streamlining into our turnkey alternative. So I'll explain that a little bit more as we get going. So first, let's do the investment of the week. This is basically what we call it free money. It's a few sound effects this morning, so yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. Free Money Tuesday. This is our investments of the week. So you guys grab your pens. I've got two in the same cove. This Dorado Cove. So it's the 3000 block of Dorado Cove. These are both in 38128. They both have 3 bedrooms and 1 bath. And they are both priced at $36,994. So for about $73,000, you can get you 2 properties right beside each other in the same cove. 3726 Dorado and 3722 Dorado Cove. Again, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, $36,994 per home. I believe these are rented at $800, I think. $750, $800. This is $750, $800 rental range. So I'll confirm the rent for you. But these are 2 good ones, both brick properties, pretty good condition. and I believe they are both occupied. So just give me a call when you have a chance. 901-619-6170. If you have any questions about these, you can text me. You could jump onto the Facebook Live stream today and ask any questions that you might have. So again, 3726 Dorado Cove, 3722 Dorado Cove, both 3-bedroom, 1-bath homes in Raleigh, $36,994 per house. So don't tell me that I never gave you free money, right? Those are the 2 investments of the week. Now, we do have a retail property this week. DeSoto County is extremely low in inventory, so I'm going to bring you a listing of the week down there. I just listed this one on Friday. It is in the Windstone subdivision of Olive Branch. This one has got 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. It's got 2,100 square feet, and we're listed at $219,900. It's a great subdivision. They've got a community pool. So I really love this Windstone subdivision. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 2,100 square feet, and the property is listed at $219,900. So if you've got questions about this one, if your family's thinking about moving down to DeSoto County, give me a call, 901-619-6170. I'm going to take a quick break. Dan Butler's going to be on the show with me today, and we're going to talk about the BRRRR strategy. You guys might have heard us talk about this before, the BRRRR strategy, and rolling that into our turnkey alternative plan that we do at CrestCore. So you guys stay tuned for that. We'll be back in just a few minutes. You're listening to the Memphis Real Estate Hour on AM990 Memphis. So they can hear us on this because we can't find the cable. So I think we're saying now is on here. Just a full disclaimer. We'll get one. He had it in his office and somehow walked away.
AM990, KW-AM.
Is it a good time to
Either
buy
way,
or
now that I'm
refi? Is it a
drove today.
buyer's market or seller's
Yeah,
market?
so either
Are
way,
interest rates going sky
I'm just
high
gonna
soon?
take this stuff
Hi,
in the
I'm
bag.
Rudy
That way
Calloway,
we'll-
the mortgage
This is
lady
not
at
their
Outbate
responsibility.
Mortgage.
You know,
I tell my
it's
customers to ask questions,
I
get
need
answers.
a
So
Wi-Fi.
join me every
I wanna
Monday
get- I wish
morning
my
at
bottom
8
were low.
on AM990, and I
Your
will
office
tell you
door, you
what's
mean?
going
Well,
on
my
in
office door
today's
does.
still changing
But like
mortgage
in
world.
my
Remember,
desk, I
most
wish
people
my
think
bottom
about
were
mortgages a
low.
few times in their lives. I think about them every single
turned up the
day.
music a
Tune
little
in
bit,
Mondays at 8.
Griffin, Cliff, Everton, and Mashmeyer, PLLC,
And
is a
I have
full-service
like
law
3 or
firm
4 of those
with
cables.
50 years
I'm
of
gonna bring
experience
one
in the
for
Memphis
them,
area.
and I'm
Real
gonna have
estate
an extra
closings
one
have
here
continued to be
hanging
the
out.
forefront of their
That's
law
probably not a
firm,
bad idea.
which include residential, commercial, and development real estate transactions,
It was either that
drafting
or
and
not go
negotiation
live.
of real estate contracts,
We've had so
and
much
leases,
momentum with
business
that, but
information,
hard to
preparation of
do.
wills, probate, and estate planning. Their firm represents a number of builders, developers, investors, and local lending institutions, and is approved to close
Talk about that
transactions
first.
for most local
Right.
banks and mortgage companies. In addition, they offer title search, title examination services, and title insurance through several well-established title insurance companies in the Memphis area, as well as Tennessee and Mississippi. They strive to offer services in a prompt and timely fashion, while advising and representing clients in a zealous and professional manner. Should their offered services be of need, please contact William N. Griffin Jr. or any of their attorneys at 901-752-1133. They can also be found online at www.gcemlaw.com or on Facebook.
All right, guys, we're here in the studio with Brad.
Our internet went down, so we have to watch DVDs like savages.
Ugh.
So I can't say anything about it because everybody else is sweating in their beds.
all right. You're over there talking with the cable.
I've got to watch.
Man, that snake is locked in your car.
We also have fabulous year prices. You can get a 5-year warranty for the cost of it. Call me at 901-870-2334 for more information. Thank you, Brad. Choice on warranty. We're happy to have
Did
you.
you call it Jeff? I'm sure you called it Jason too.
Yeah,
I know you made it home.
45
Now
seconds.
here's the Mid-South weather from the News Channel 3 Severe
That's
Weather
it. I hate
Center.
that feeling.
Brought to you by Gossa Kia on Covington Pike. Family owned and operated.
You turn mine down a little bit.
Partly sunny,
which one are
warm,
you in?
humid
He's
with
yellow.
continued chances for scattered afternoon showers. High temperatures in the mid-80s, variable winds, mostly cloudy
I bet we have a lot
mid-60s
less
overnight.
people on here.
We're back into the lower 80s with some hit-and-miss showers on Wednesday and Thursday. Don't
which
wait
is why
until
there's
the
a
heat
week that we
becomes
don't have a
overwhelming.
game with us.
Have Air and Heat
Yeah.
Service check your home's cooling system. Call 662-838-8088. That's 662-838-8088. I'm News Channel 3's Tom Demers on AM990.
Now you can listen and watch too. Go to our website to listen online and see our studio cam, KW-AM990.com.
Maybe you mentioned how big storm it was, and then
All right, welcome back to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I'm your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty over on Summer Avenue in East Memphis. If you haven't checked out our new building over there, we're just across from the Auto Zone. Most of you know where that is. Let's talk for just a second. We're going to jump into the BRRRR strategy and talk about our CrestCore Realty's turnkey alternative. But first, welcome Dan Butler to the show.
good morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Let's talk for a second about this past weekend. We had a huge storm come through. I imagine there's a ton of people right now that if you're listening, you are listening through an alternative motive other than maybe your...
Might not even have internet.
Yeah, you might not. Yeah, you might be checking us out from your Facebook page. So let's give some tips, Dan. Let's talk a little bit about tree damage, what to look for, what to be careful of.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions this weekend. Our guys were out pretty much all weekend. Started Saturday morning, Sunday morning, worked through yesterday. But, you know, trees were down everywhere. I think Frazier was probably hit the hardest.
That's what I heard.
You know, and you know, my wife was texting me. She's out of town just constantly about the storms. Like, I didn't realize how big a deal it was.
Yeah.
I mean, what you tell me earlier was...
It made news really across the South, but it was the third largest storm in Memphis history from a power outage standpoint.
190,000 or something.
190,000.
I heard that because they ranked, I think Hurricane Elvis was #1, correct?
Number one, and this was the biggest storm since then.
Since then, yeah.
Ice Storm 94 was probably up there.
Had to have been. Man, I remember that day.
Yeah, talking about free money. I thought about all the dollars I was spending after this weekend. The tree guys are loving it right now. But
Yeah, they are. Woodland Tree, I guess, is one that comes to mind. They're probably
so,
working hard today.
You know, one thing that made me think about for our listeners, you know, from an investor standpoint, it's kind of ironic. Just 2 weeks ago, I talked to my tree guy about, you know, business, and he said he loved working with investors.
Right.
And I said, well, what do you mean by that? Because investors don't spend any money on trees. Think about that. Like,
they don't come in and do it.
Prune up your tree. You know how, like, we're always, you know, at least in my house, every 3 years we're pruning it up, you know, going all the way through and just thinning it out, make sure the air flow through it, and then knock it over. And investors don't do that. Investors ever. They wait for a limb to fall, and you know, I'm generalizing here, but
now that I'm thinking, I don't know that I've ever had an investor. Oh man, look at the limbs on there. I'm going to pull those down.
So just something to think about for two things. One is just think about, you know, pruning the trees and kind of getting a maintenance program in place to every 3 years kind of track that and put some money aside to thin those out, not wait for the damage.
If not, you might wish you had today.
Wish you had, right?
Yeah, especially if you got a whole portfolio of them.
And then probably talk to your insurance agent, you know, and understand your coverage, you know, what you have for trees, because, you know, I think people get, you know, if a neighbor's tree falls on your house, they think the neighbor's insurance is supposed to cover it. I don't know if you know this or not, but whatever happens to your house is your insurance, no matter if it came from a neighbor or across the street.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you need to, you know, listeners should talk to their insurance agent, make sure they understand that whatever happens in your house, or vice versa, if a tree fell from your yard into somebody else's house,
it's on them.
It's on them. Now you got to get the tree from the fence line back to your house, but that tree on the other side of the fence.
Could you imagine how upset?
Oh, it creates a lot of tension, a lot of issues. But you know,
yeah, because if I got a huge tree, like I have one now, a huge limb, and if it falls on my neighbor's side, it's on him. It's on him and his.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got some stories I can share with that, but I think that's just a reminder that think about your trees. And with the damage that happened, you know, this weekend.
Yeah,
it was pretty massive. So I mean, we had one couple that was blocked into their house. They couldn't get outside. The trees had fallen in front of the doorways
and couldn't get them out.
Couldn't get out. So our tree guys, it took them a couple hours, but finally got them out of the house. So I got all kinds of good stories for you from this weekend.
Guild, your Midtown liver, what's going on with you? Do you have power?
So I live in Cooper Young, a
Yeah.
neighborhood that was hit pretty hard by the storm.
Yeah.
I do have power, but I do not have internet.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck with DVDs.
First world problem, right?
I'm telling you. Yeah, I know. And we have been so just put out by this DVD thing.
Yeah.
We were like, I keep all of, yeah, so I collected DVDs growing
Yeah.
up. So I have like a whole
Library.
Yeah, but it's in my shed. I have to keep it in my shed now. So I have to keep walking back out there
Oh,
to find
yeah, man. Gil's making no
DVDs.
friends this morning.
Yeah.
These people with no power are like, never
Waking
mind
up
Gil.
from like a sweaty sleep.
Yeah, oh,
It is
man.
the worst.
All right, so if you're one of those folks with no power, we hope you get it back quickly. And if you've got some tree damage, get a hold of whoever you can now and try to remedy that problem. Then if you're an investor, and you were lucky enough not to have any tree damage, you might want to look into that, especially if you got a portfolio. So, all right,
And if
go
any of the
ahead.
listeners on Facebook Live, they want to comment that need some help on understanding what that looks like, feel free to comment.
Yeah, comment on there, and we'll get
Email,
back
call
to it
back,
either
yeah.
at the break or after the show. So yeah, we'll be happy to do that.
Absolutely.
Leave your information there, and we'll get back to you after the show. All right, let's jump into turnkey alternative versus a turnkey property or a BRRRR process. Which, for those of you that don't know, you might have heard us say BRRRR on here before. It's B and 4 R's. It's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. It's a process that we use. It's as famous from Bigger Pockets. It's
Yeah.
one of our favorite websites. And the BRRRR strategy is something that our clients use frequently. I wouldn't want to put a percentage on it, but a good bit.
I'd say a majority of our clients use the BRRRR
I would think
strategy.
so. Yeah, unless they're just straight paying cash and just have that cash. But if they're trying to utilize a limited amount of cash, this is the
That's
way.
true.
to-
I think that, just take the refinance part out of it, but other than that, we're
Yeah. Either way,
Either way.
they're either refinancing or they're not. But if
Yeah.
they are, they're still burned, just with one less R.
That's right, one less R.
That's right. So buy, rehab, rent the property, refinance it, and then turn around and repeat, and you can continuously keep using your cash. That is the BRRRR strategy. Now we're going to take that into what we at CrestCore call the turnkey alternative. There are a turnkey product, for those that are listening, is a home, and the definitions of this vary.
Yeah.
A true turnkey, I'll say, from a true turnkey provider, that this is their business and what they provide. You're getting a home that has been completely renovated,
Right.
usually from the top to the bottom, new
Right.
roof, everything, new
Everything
HVAC, yeah, all the mechanicals are brand new.
Yep.
It's occupied in most cases. They get you a tenant that's already inside there, paying rent, so it's cash producing right now.
Right.
There's no specific area of town they go in. They can be all over the city, so there's no.
Certainly, providers pick certain providers pick certain parts of the city, but
That's right.
But they are all over the city.
That's right. They're all over, and it's a good product if, in my opinion, if you're a passive investor, if you do not want to be hands-on at all, really at all, if you just
Right.
want to look at a performing asset and collect your check every month or quarter or however you set it up. So that is a turnkey product. It works for some people. If you're in that 5, 6, 7 percent return range every year, if you're comfortable with that, if that's what you're shooting for and to remain passive, that product could be for you.
Yeah, I think the key word there is passive.
Mhm.
Very, very passive. Just they've got their day jobs and they're very hands off and just want to return.
That's right.
With an asset. So
That's right. So that's a straight turnkey property. Now, we've talked about this before. CrestCore's turnkey alternative. People say, well, what's the difference between the two? And the difference between the two is, just to call it like it is, we keep the equity into the buyer's pocket. Try our best to put the equity into the buyer's pocket and not into ours. We charge a flat fee to obtain the property. Myself or any of our agents will go and find you what you're looking for. So if you said, Dean, I'm looking for, I don't want to spend over 50 grand. I'd like an 800 rental. Show me what you can find.
Right.
We then go on the hunt, on the search. We don't keep inventory at CrestCore. We've got listings, but we don't keep a steady supply of inventory for our investors. The way I look at that is if I've got homes that have been sitting around for months on end and they hadn't been purchased, then, you know, why do you want it? So we don't keep a lot of inventory, so we go on the hunt. I go and try to find that property, negotiate the lowest price, whether it's from a wholesaler, a banker, a current investor who's liquidating,
Right.
the MLS, any of the different variations that we can find it. We find that property, negotiate the lowest price, get it under contract. I obtain a rehab bid for you. So we have a rehab department at CrestCore. We come and give you a PDF and jump in anytime, because I know some of this I'm not elaborating a ton on. But we go in, get a rehab bid, a line-by-line, itemized, PDF formatted rehab bid, show you what it's going to take to be rent ready.
Right.
That comes with 55 to 65 pictures, so you're going to get a full.
We're actually over 100 now.
Over 100 pictures,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, so we're showing up to 100. So I guess that's an ever-changing thing of what people want too.
Right.
So we're pushing up to 100 pictures, and then at that point you make a decision on what part of the rehab you want to do. If you want to add to it, take away from it, we allow you to do that. This is not a you take it or leave it type of situation.
Right.
Then at that point, to keep moving, once the rehab is completed, I integrate you over with our property management company, and we set you up in our system with our PropertyWare program and get you a tenant occupied. So there's the turnkey alternative. Now, the different people say, well, that sounds a whole lot like a turnkey product, and it is. You're getting the same end result. A rehabbed home occupied with the tenant. The catch is we can do that for 50 and 55, and turnkey companies do it for 75 and 80.
Yeah, and I think that the difference, and you know, we can dive back into, we still got to refinance, repeat, but go back to the buy at some point. But I think the key difference is just you know, most of our investors that we kind of link up with have 10+ properties.
That's right.
And so they play the volume game, and so they want their basis in the house at the start as low as they can get it. And what that means is, you know, if you have 10 houses, and you got, you know, say you buy that house and has 7 years left on the roof, well, let those 7 years play out. By then you'll have 10, 20 houses, and the cash flow could help. You could save that capital expense for later on.
That's right.
And put the basis in, you know, 7 years down the road.
That's right.
You know, that's kind of the difference on that is that side of it. You know, but when you're buying that property, you know, I think that you got several variables you got to look at. You know, whether it's turnkey or us, you know, or turnkey alternative, reverse strategy. You know, is it the purchase price?
It's okay. Thank
you know,
you.
the rehab cost, the closing cost, the holding cost. You know, that all totals into a total cost of buying that house. So say you bought it for $40,000, $10,000 rehab, $2,000 in closing. I always tell, I mean, $2,000 to me is high, but that's what I always tell people. Just
2,000 closing costs.
Yeah. What do you tell people?
I tell people anywhere from 800 to 1,200, and that's normally what it runs into. But if you budget too,
you know me, I'm a sand guy, so I always take 2,000. So when it comes in at 1,200, they're pretty happy. But
yeah, and if you still, like I said, it's the same situation. If you budget for 2, and it's less, great.
Right.
You know, good news.
Right. And then the holding costs, that would play into, for the listeners to understand, like, are you using your own line? Are you using, you know, hard money? So if you're using hard money, say it's 3 points and 12% interest or 1% a month, that's going to cost you on a $50,000 investment. What is that? $1,500 up front.
Yep.
And 1% a month, $500 a month. So if you 3 months without rent, so you're almost $2,500, $3,000 in holding cost. So now that the $40,000 purchase, $10,000 rehab, and then $3,000 holding cost. Now you're at $53,000.
It adds up.
It adds up, plus the $1,200 for closing. So now you're at $54,000.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
That's
so
right.
It's funny how a $40,000 purchase all of a sudden turns into almost $55,000.
And you got real estate commission. So I mean, when we charge that up front too. So it's we have a flat fee that we charge. But all that saying, if you compare apples to apples, I mean, we're completely. It's a way better scenario from a purchase price standpoint. We put you into the property for a lot less money. We are adding up all these fees and adding up all this stuff because that goes with any transaction. You know, that's not limited to just us.
Well, I think the key to that is you know, partnering with people you trust and understanding those fees. I mean, I was going back and forth with a guy from California this weekend, and actually he's not even a client of ours, but he's a supporter. He emails me for advice all the time, and just got a good relationship with him. And that was one of the things he was frustrated about with Memphis is just the transparency. And I laid it out for him, like for us, it's we charge flat fee plus a percentage of the rehab, and then the ongoing management is really just 2 fees to acquire it. But that's the transparency piece, I think, is what's missing for a lot of people.
And he wasn't meaning the other people he was talking to here, he wasn't getting that.
Couldn't get it. Kept getting the runaround.
Oh, you're kidding. Really?
And people just want to know. I mean, not that they. At the end of the day, I mean, I saw a guy post this morning about worried about wholesale fees, and the person worried about paying too much for wholesale fees. We went over and over that last week. Who cares?
I don't.
As long as the deal's good, who cares what everybody else is making? That deal's got to be good for you.
Period.
I
mean, because if somebody, this is a hot topic because I've got some clients right now that if they see a $20,000 assignment fee to a wholesaler, even if they're getting a deal, they'll run.
Yeah.
They'll back out and I'm not paying anybody $20,000. And my thought to that is, if your numbers before rehab, you need to be in at 40. And that's where you have to be.
Right.
And the wholesaler is selling the house at 35, so with your commission and everything, you're going to be right at 40 before the rehab. And then all of a sudden you get a $15,000 assignment fee from the wholesaler because he worked and got it for 20.
Right.
How can you be upset at that kid or that guy for doing that? I don't, and I don't have any problem with it, but if you understand that, I had an investor client of ours, our buddy from Arkansas, that he kind of instilled that in my head. He never cared. He couldn't have cared less if as long as his numbers worked at the end of the day, meaning at time to close, that he didn't care who was making the money because he was still getting a deal. Now it's got to be a deal. You don't want to have me come up to you and say, hey, this house is really great. I would buy it. I'd move on it.
Right.
And I know it's pushing our numbers. I know you're a little over what you want to spend, but let's do that. Now that approach isn't the same. But if I'm coming to you and I'm saying, hey, you're still $5,000 under what you want it to be,
right.
but we've got to pay this guy $20,000 to do that. And what is the difference?
Right.
It's an ego thing to me at that point.
Well, and one of my answers is always, somebody's going to pay it.
Yeah, right. Somebody next to you, right behind you, is going to get that house for the right price.
Yep. And somebody's going to pay it. I mean, like I said, those guys work hard to get those deals.
They do.
To allow us the opportunity to buy an investment property. So.
Not even working hard, they spend money.
It's true.
We have a wholesaler that's close to us, and
spends thousands, right?
Spends thousands every month on it, and his wife is still trying to understand it too. But the math, he gets a $15,000 assignment fee, and he's like, "Well, I spent $6,000 this month in marketing. We owe Uncle Sam $4,000 of this. I owe so and so. Well, we made $3,500 bucks
to the final bottom line, right?
That's right. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just that one assignment fee. So yes, so a lot of people get caught up with that.
And the other piece on that buy, just before we go back to the rehab, but just understand the rent amount. Really understand that. A lot of people, I say a lot of people, you see that a lot out there, that the rents are inflated when they're selling houses.
Big time.
To out-of-state investors, particularly. I think you just got to go to Zillow. It gets you close. Within $25, $50, maybe $75.
Yeah.
Renometer's a great site.
Yeah.
I got a membership there that's really good. Craigslist, do a quick check. Just type in the zip code in Memphis, Tennessee, in Craigslist, and see what's listed, and just kind of see the 3 bedrooms and say 38122.
Yeah.
And you'll quickly see 750 to 850.
Yeah.
Well, if they're telling you that's 925, and Zillow's told you 850, Craigslist you're seeing a range of 750 to 850, and then Renometer's kind of 775.
You know what the rent is.
The rent. Don't go put in the 925. You can still buy that deal from whoever's selling it to you, but
don't think you're going to get.
Don't think you're going to get 925.
Yeah.
I get that a lot with investors that come to us. Well, I was told it was going to be 925. I'm like, man, do you want it to sit for 6 months? I might can find somebody.
Yeah, but it's going to cost you so much money for it to sit there.
Well, that's one thing that people it took a long time for me to be able to articulate this so that people would understand. Like, just waiting, that they want that $50 extra.
Yeah.
So say 700 to 750.
Yeah.
All right. And they want that 750 instead of 700. And I can rent it today, say June 1st, start coming up.
Yeah.
For 700. No, I gotta wait. And they wait till July 1st.
Yeah.
For the 750, and I got the 750. Who's ahead?
They're not.
They're not,
No.
right?
Because you think about the money it costs to hold it.
So they gained $50 times 12 months, really 11 months. That's $550. Whereas I could have rented it the month before, and you're what, $700 versus $650. You're actually 50 to $100 ahead, depending on how you do the
That's
math.
right. That's right.
By just going ahead and renting it, putting a body in there. Plus your maintenance stops. You got somebody running the air and running the water and all that stuff. So it's not sitting vacant.
That also determines or distinguishes to me between a good wholesaler and one that maybe isn't putting as much work into it. If they're putting out good numbers, real numbers, other than just what they think it could be, that's also an indicator. And then something else too. We manage 2,700 houses at CrestCore. I've heard you say this 100 times. If we don't have one on that street, we got one within a block. Yeah. So if you ever have questions and worry about that, we can always be a source for you too, for your rental numbers. Rehab, after you bought the property, something to look at for rehab, the long-term thinking. Tell me a little bit about what you mean when you're talking long-term thinking when it comes to rehab.
Making it robust. It is a rental. So hard surfaces. Look at the age of the mechanical equipment. That's your roof, your HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical. Use a licensed contractor. So all that's kind of tied in that long-term thinking. You're not just taking a snapshot. You're trying to say, what's this house going to look like for the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Maybe even 10 years, but at least 5 years. And then on top of that, make sure you get a firm quote before you close.
Yeah.
That is one key difference, I would say, between turnkey and BRRRR strategy or turnkey alternative is we're doing the rehab after close. So the investors owning that house, you're putting the rehab at it day 2 after the close or the second day after the close. And so you want to make sure that quote's firm. You know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Your permits are included in there. Has the power been off? You got to know all that stuff because that's where I've seen some people in the past mess up. Well, I didn't know there was electrical inspection and gas inspection. Well, those two alone could be $1,000 a piece. To meet code standards of for 2017. I mean, the gas lines get pressurized. I can't remember 30 or 50. I can't. The PSI. Operating pressure is 5 PSI, but they blow that thing up trying to make sure that any leaks are found.
Yeah.
So you could be busting out walls. You mean busting out concrete, all that kind of stuff. So.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're talking about rehab. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking about the BRRRR strategy that we've learned on Bigger Pockets to transform that to our turnkey alternative plan that we do at CrestCore. So you guys hang tight. We'll come back and finish up the rehab. We'll talk about the rent, the refinance, and the repeat process of that. You're listening to the Memphis Real Estate Hour on AM990 Memphis. If I put it on now, then it cuts it off, right?
I think you might have to get out of there to go into the settings and put it on.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
AM990, KW-AM.
All right, guys, I'm here in the studio with Brad Sterling. Brad's been a part of the Memphis Real Estate Hour, but now we're with a new warranty company, Choice Home Warranty. Brad, tell me about it.
Yeah, Dean, Choice has been an industry leader in direct-to-consumer warranty sales. Now they've opened up a brand new real estate portal. Pricing begins at $420 and goes up to $550 with a low $65 trade call fee. We also have fabulous multi-year pricing, meaning you can get a 5-year warranty for the cost of 4. Call me at 901-870-2334 for more information.
Thank you, Brad. Choice Home Warranty, we're happy to have them part of the Memphis Real Estate Hour.
Is it a good time to buy or refi? Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? Are interest rates going sky high soon? Hi, I'm Ludy Calloway, the mortgage lady at iBank Mortgage. I tell my customers to ask questions, get answers. So join me every Monday morning at 8 on AM990 and I will tell you what's going on in today's still changing mortgage world. Remember, most people think about mortgages a few times in their lives. I think about them every single day. Tune in Mondays at 8.
PLLC is a full-service law firm with over 50 years of experience in the Memphis area. Real estate closings have continued to be the forefront of their law practice, which include residential, commercial, and development real estate transactions, drafting and negotiation of real estate contracts and leases, business information, preparation of wills, probate, and estate planning. Their firm
So if you made it home from
owners,
the
developers,
JCC,
investors, and local lending
could have left your
institutions,
wallet
and
there.
is approved to close transactions for most local banks and mortgage
So you ordered some
companies.
dinner.
In addition, they offer title search, title examination services, and title insurance.
That's what I gotta worry about now, maybe.
Established title insurance companies in the Memphis area,
Wouldn't let
as
that at a
well as
restaurant.
Tennessee and Mississippi. They strive
Did you
to
order dinner
offer
at home?
services in a prompt and timely fashion, while advising and
Oh,
representing
so it's at your
clients
house
in a
almost.
zealous and professional manner. Should their offered services
Do you
be
have,
needed, please contact William N. Griffin Jr.
You wouldn't have
or
left the
any of
keys in
their
your car.
attorneys at
Because you had to get in the house, right?
901-1133. They can also be found online at www.gcem.
Now, if you left it in your car, wouldn't your outside security pop up? Like,
Now here's the
somebody's
Mid-South
up there with
weather
the
from the
camera
News
pop
Channel
up.
3 Severe Weather Center. Brought to you by Gossikia on Covington
Every-
Pike. Family owned and operated.
Everything that
Partly
right.
sunny, warm, and humid with continued
Oh, man.
chances for scattered afternoon showers. High temperatures in the mid-80s, variable winds, mostly cloudy,
Alright.
mid-60s overnight. We're back into the lower 80s with some hit-and-miss showers on Wednesday and Thursday. Don't wait until the heat becomes overwhelming. Have Air and Heat Service check your home's cooling system. Call 662
Are you running are you running Brad Sterling? You just did it.
Yes,
right?
it was the first one. I just
Okay.
changed up the
word.
Channel 3 Scott Demers on AM990.
AM990, streaming live at KW-AM990.com.
All right, welcome back to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I'm your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty over on Summer Avenue. I've got Dan Butler, CrestCore Realty, here in the studio with me this morning. We are discussing our turnkey alternative at CrestCore. We provide what we call a turnkey alternative. We run our clients from the BRRRR strategy into this turnkey alternative, and we've been going over the BRRRR strategy this morning. We left it off with the rehab and long-term thinking. And what we mean by that is, you know, some people ask me, Dean, why in the world would you put ceramic tile in the bedrooms?
Right.
Well, the answer it'll last. The answer to that is I can put up with several either years of the same tenant or multiple I guess multiple tenant flip overs. You know, vacancies, turns. I guess is the term we use.
It's more robust. I think I've tried every flooring.
Yeah, I was about to say. I'm sure you have.
Out there, and I mean, ceramic tile is my favorite, but it's actually the most expensive, as well. It's going to be over $4 a square foot, whereas carpet's less than $2. So there's a double cost of flooring for the house, but to me it's worth it. I mean,
yeah.
And there's another alternative, the vinyl plank flooring that looks like hardwood. That's been a good alternative.
And the water doesn't mess that up?
It can, but the good thing about that is you can pull out the pieces that get messed up and just replace the bad spots.
Yeah.
That's the key. Like, we went to that click flooring for a little while.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. It's beautiful flooring, but you get water underneath that and stuff. To your point, you have to take the floor out all the way up to the sides of the walls.
Yeah.
There's really no way to repair it and make it look decent.
Yeah.
So
the ceramic tile, now, what's the downfall of that? I mean, just the cost and the appearance, I guess the look.
Well, most people don't have trouble with the look. I think that's occasionally you might get that it doesn't have a warm feeling, but most people just buy little throw rugs, area rugs, and roll with it. And most people like it because it's easy to clean. The whole house, you can sweep the whole house, vacuum it real quick. So
any scored floors? Anybody doing scored concrete?
You know, some of the new construction is, you know, and that's worked out well. You know, it's you know, but that all depends on how good the person
that's doing
it the first time. You know, so that's kind of a specialty.
Yeah. Now that you can't just call up anybody and say, hey, let's
stain
my floors.
No, there's some science, you know, behind that you can't just clean the floor, throw some stain on it, some epoxy. It doesn't, you know, it's gonna flake up. It's not gonna look good. So anyway,
come on in here and just lay down.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, long-term thinking, hard services, age of the mechanical equipment. That is something to consider. What is, you know, I know what I talk to my investors when we look at the mechanicals. What are you as an investor? What do you look at? Is it a 10-year unit you replace it, or is there some kind of like cutoff criteria that you use for each one of those?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best one to ask because.
If it's breathing, you leave it. Right?
That's pretty good.
Thing's got a pulse, man. Dan's leaving it in there.
The power's running, and I just leave it just because I just try to get my basis as low as I can, and then I replace it. I don't go back to a furnace and replace 200 here, 200 there. You know, I ask for, here's my fix. What's the upgrade cost? So like, first service call, I'm looking at it. Like if it's $200 or $300. I go ahead and spend the $800 or $1,000 whatever and replace it. And I got a 10-year warranty and that kind of stuff. So, but by then hopefully I bought 2 or 3 more houses and the cash flow can cover that furnace. I just look at it a little differently than a lot of guys.
I look at it just like that. I've never understood. You know, people ask me about turnkey and well, everything's new. I know. I mean, I understand you just put a new roof on it, but here's my thought with that. If you're buying a rental property and you're gonna own it 30 years. Now, I know life happens and you might have to sell it, but if your your initial plan, I'm going to own this, pass it to my kids, whatever.
Right.
If you buy it, the turnkey went up front. They're replacing that roof then, right? All right. So let's use the roof as an example. Okay, it's brand new today. Mm-hmm. Well, in 20 years, that's probably at best, you're going to have to replace it.
Right.
Typically, at 15, you're going to have to replace it. If you buy the home and it's still got 5 or 6 years, 7 years left in the roof, why in the world replace it? Let the roof stay for 5 or 6, 7 years, budget in some capital expenditures for later, and now you've only bought one roof for 27 years instead of 20 years or 15 or whatever it may be.
Right.
So that's my thought process with that. I'm with you a little bit. If it's got some life in it, leave it. Understand what you're dealing with. Yeah, understand what it is, and then know that it's coming up. You're going to have to replace it.
As long as you understand that, that's the key. You know, is the transparency and being open and honest, and just knowing that, you know, hey, you know, buyer, this roof, you know, I could replace it for $5,000.
Yeah.
I think it's got 3 to 5 years in it. You know, and here's the thing that we found is people like choices. You know, especially. You know, certain personalities don't like to be told what to do.
Yeah.
You know, just that's.
Here it is. That's my job. With what I do every day, I don't sell any of this, really. You know what I mean? I'm not on the phone convincing you to do this.
Right.
I'm here to guide you and give you options. So I love that. Huh?
Although you are a good salesman.
Yeah, I mean, I can lay it down to you in several different ways. So, but I mean, it's with options. And I've told you this 100 times, the greatest sales job is when you're not being, you know, you don't know you're being sold. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if I just lay this down and give you the options and guide you, that's really what this is.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, guiding us. I mean, it's you know, they're relying on us or a turnkey provider or a real estate agent or contractor, whoever you're relying on for your information. Just having all the facts and then you make an educated. That's probably the key is educated decision.
That's right.
You know, if you know you're only going to own 2 houses, you know, if I step back and think about it, I probably would replace those 2 roofs on the front end.
Yeah.
Just because
it's 2 houses.
It's 2 houses. If 3 years in I need a $5,000 roof, I've already done my financing 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard for me to go back to the bank and get that $5,000. It's gonna come out of my pocket.
That's right.
So
might as well do it now.
Might as well do it now. So I could see, you know,
another perspective.
You know, and have a belief that would make sense at that time.
That's
I
right.
think that's key there.
Live in the studio with Dan Butler with CrestCore Realty. We're talking turnkey alternative from the BRRRR strategy. We've talked about buying, rehabbing. Let's talk about the rent real quick. Market rent. Most banks, you know, they won't refinance until the rehab is completed and the house is rented out. Tell me a little bit about what you look for from a rent standpoint, now I know we mentioned some of the websites, Zillow, Craigslist and Rent-A-Meter. We use those.
Our own software.
Software.
We check that all the time. We know, you know, it's funny how after you do it so long and know the streets, like the streets are what they are. And some people push, you know, a good friend of mine's a turnkey guy. He likes to be $25 to $50 underneath market rent. So there's all kinds of strategies out there, but I think market rent's a fair way to go about it. And I think, you know, in pushing above market rent, that's a tough sale.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. You know, if you think about all of us, human nature, most of us are looking for a deal.
Every time.
By human nature. And so if you say, well, I'm going to be the most expensive house on the block, that's limiting. You know, usually, you know, I hate to generalize, but a lot of times that means there's an issue with the credit or the area, the person. You know, they're willing to pay up just for you to give them a chance.
Give them the opportunity.
And so you're taking a chance with them to get that higher rent on somebody that might not be as qualified.
You're also taking a chance that past that tenant, past that one, you're not going to have that rental number. So if you're buying based on that higher rental number, that could be foolish because your first tenant might be the only tenant that pays that much.
Yeah, I think people got to be careful. I think I had this conversation with a guy. Where was he from? California, I think. Yeah, a lot of these guys are, but you know, his thing was he had a house in Fraser rented for $825.
Yep.
And I was like, man, I just told him, I was like, if they move out, I'm not going to be able to get $825. Whatever they've done to get that $825, great for them, but that's not reality. You know, and people appreciate, you know, and as long as, I mean, he's still going to buy the house, but he's backed down his numbers, the long-term cash flow numbers of you know, based on, say, $750.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so people I just feel, you know, for our listeners and viewers, just make sure they check that. I would do that as, you know, as passive as you want to be. Check those numbers, make sure they line up.
I always try to set the expectations a little lower. I mean, then if I, you know, then if they exceed what I'm telling them, then great.
They're happy.
You know, thank goodness. So we're talking buy, rehab, rent, refinance is our next. So after we've rehabbed the property, we've got it rented out. Now we're going to go to our bank, and we're going to say, Mr. Banker, I'd like to get my money back out of this property so I can do it again. This is the most important piece,
right?
I was
going to say this is the most important, and probably should be done before you get to this. What is this?
This stage.
Yeah, fourth R. I would have all this figured out before you even start the BRRRR strategy.
Yeah, you have to, almost, in my opinion, to know what you're getting. And explain why, Dan. Explain why. I mean, you know, we tell people you have to think about the third R before you start the first and second R. But what is it about refinance that you think you know, for the listeners, that you've got to do that up front?
Well, you just need to know what your capabilities are for buying. Is it one house? Is the bank going to let you buy 5? Are you going to buy 10? You know, what are they willing to partner with you on? You know, are you looking for a Fannie Mae loan? You know, which is put in you have to put that in your personal name. So then it gets into an insurance and liability question. Are you willing to take that liability on in your personal name? There's all kinds of questions you gotta figure out. Are you looking for cash flow now, or are you looking for, you know, cash flow in the future? You know, that's going to drive. So let's explain that. Cash flow now, 30-year note probably.
Yep.
Which is a Fannie Mae loan. So now you're going down that path. You say, all right, I want cash flow now, which then means I need a 30-year note, which means I need to do a Fannie Mae loan, which means I need to do it in personal name, which means I need to probably look at umbrella insurance and those kind of things. You see,
way more than what you're looking at.
So like 5 things right there.
You ran out of fingers.
I ran out of fingers. Like, okay. But if you're saying, all right, I'm not looking for cash flow, I'm looking for paying down the equity, which is, you know, the strategy that we always went for, you know, 15 years or less, pay down that principal really quickly. So then you're looking at probably, you can still do it with a Fannie Mae loan. So let's make sure, you know, listeners understand that. But you can also go to a local bank, you know, your banks, the community banks that love to loan to community people.
Yep.
You know, it's going to be more of what I call a commercial note. It's a bank note. They're actually loaning their own funds as far as their deposits to you for that house.
That's right.
You know, those terms are going to be 20 years at max. You know, probably they're all going to want 15. I had one bank that, you know, back in the day wanted 10-year. I said, you know, it was tough, But guess what? Those things are almost paid off.
That's right.
It's funny how that works. Like on the backside, you're like, man, I'm glad he made me do those 10. I got 2 or 3 houses going to pay off.
About to pay off,
About
right?
to pay off just because he pushed that. But you know that will lead into that direction. And so before you do that, I would say look at your credit score, make sure it's buttoned up. The banks really, really hammer that credit score. Look at what you got out there. Get your personal financial statement in order. There's plenty of them that you can just Google out there and learn.
Yeah.
All you're basically just doing is summing up your assets and liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
How much you have in equity in your house, your cars, your toys, whatever it is.
That's right.
Minus all your notes, all your outstanding debts. You could be schools, could be medical, could be whatever.
That's right.
And you're subtracting those and kind of quote figuring out your net worth.
My main question I get is, am I going to be able to get 80% back out? What's the value? It's not even necessarily, I mean, they're worried about these pieces, my credit, my P&L, they're worried about that. But the main thing that they ask me is, hey, am I going to be able to get 80% of that money? So is it gonna, if we're buying it for 50, we're putting 20 in it, or 25 in it, is it gonna appraise for 100 or 98 so I can get my 75,000 back out of there? That's the biggest question that I get. Can I get the money I put back into it? So
I think the answer is yes, right? I mean, I think the majority of the time, I don't want to say it's a guarantee.
Yeah, well, that's what I've helped them determine. I go and look at the retail comps, and I go and look at some of the areas that they're buying in and find out if we can.
Right.
And then lastly, we get into repeat. So the BRRRR strategy is buy. You're going to buy the property. We went through that. Rehab the home. We talked about some long-term thinking and different materials that you want to use for there.
Licensed contractors.
That's absolutely. What the rent, you determine the market rent and what that's going to be. We talked about the sources, Craigslist, Zillow, Renometer, us, CrestCore, ourselves, we manage so many. And then we talked about the refinance. So, and then just repeat, how many do you want? And try to come up with a strategy of, once you hit that last R, let's get that money back out and let's start it back over again.
Yeah.
So I'm, this is a strategy that a lot of people use. This is a strategy that is famous almost on Bigger Pockets, which is a website that we stay faithful to. So if you have questions about some of this, the turnkey alternative, the BRRRR strategy in particular, I mean, we can lay that out a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think to sum up that last R, the repeat, I think really know before you start, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
How many you want to do? I remember sitting on a plane and coming up with really a 10-year plan of how many houses I wanted to do and how I was going to get there. And before that was the BRRRR, that was actually the strategy I used. So I knew I wanted, 100 plus houses. And so I laid out a plan and knew I had to talk to this many banks and this many guidance lines and, all that stuff. So, if there's one thing we could tell our listeners that I highly recommend is just go for the volume.
Yeah.
I think you need 10 plus houses.
That's the magic number.
To spread the risk, to cover, capital expenditures when they come up, so it's not all out of your pocket, and just because not every house, that's what I'm trying to explain to people. Not every house is going to be just rosy.
No.
So if I took 10 houses and say they were all the same type of 10 houses, seven are going to be great, 2 are going to be lagging, little small issues.
One's going to be a dog.
And one's going to be a dog.
You can count on it.
You can count on it. I mean, there's, just like the storm this weekend. There's hundreds of houses out there, and there's going to be several dogs that
are out
there that were paying for tree damage.
That's right. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you coming on the show again today. Faithful contributor. You made it on time this morning. Had a rough morning. All right. Appreciate you guys listening to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. We'll be back here next Tuesday at 8 a.m. If you have questions, jump on the Facebook page and ask anything that you might want. You're listening to the Memphis Real Estate Hour on AM990 Memphis.
Thanks.
This is the voice of Memphis, AM990 KW-AM Memphis. Online at KW-AM990.